Which parade would be bigger? The one the Vols just had for baseball, or the one that they might have, didn't have in 1998, by the way, but they might have for football? John, you go first because your opinion did surprise me.
Well, just viewing the parade last week, it was estimated that 50,000 people were there, downtown Knoxville area. And keep in mind, this thing was very impromptu. It wasn't as though it had been planned. There was no delay. A lot of fans were still in Omaha or en route back to Knoxville or East Tennessee. Yet the crowd was just absolutely stunning how large it was. And my take, and I ran this by several other people. I was watching on TV. I'm not a big fan of crowds in 95-degree heats and no restraining ropes. So I kind of kept my distance and watched on different stations. But I just, when I presented this, it struck me, what if this had been would this crowd have been any bigger if it had been a football national championship? And I don't believe it would have. And I presented that to several people, friends of mine, and they all said the same thing. I don't think it could have, because that's how popular this team was. Tennessee fans are in love with this baseball team, and they were following it all the way through. And when they went to the College World Series, I had a number of fans tell me, hey, it's like a road game in football. That's all people were talking about in the days leading up to the College World Series. So I know how big football is here, but I don't think that crowd under those circumstances could have been any bigger than if it had been a football national title.
Okay, so I'm going to ask the poll question, which is today's tough question. It's on our YouTube page. A football championship parade would blank the Vols championship parade in baseball. Dwarf, be about the same, be smaller. So, John, you would say dwarf, be about the same, be smaller.
I think it would be about the same under those same conditions where it was, like I said, impromptu and no lead time on it. It just almost, hey, we're going to have a parade. Oh, okay, let's go downtown. That's how it worked.
Caleb, I didn't share all of those parameters with you when we were talking before the show began, but now that you know the parameters, would you agree or disagree with John?
I'm sorry, John. One of the reasons I love John is because John and I both have hot takes, and I think we are great with our hot takes. But John, I totally disagree. Football would dwarf it. And I'll tell you guys why football would dwarf it. You may have a point that in Knoxville and on campus in the UT community right now, this baseball team is beloved, and I'm not denying that. But the thing about football is its statewide reach. When I was growing up in Memphis, the Commercial Appeal had a beat reporter for the Tennessee football team. They didn't have one for the Tennessee basketball team, and I guarantee you they didn't have one for the Tennessee baseball team, and I'm pretty sure they don't have one for the Tennessee baseball team right now. Because if the football team won a national title, it wouldn't just be the Knoxville and the UT community that would go to that parade. People would drive from West Tennessee, from maybe Georgia, from Western North Carolina. Tennessee fans would drive all over just to see the parade in Knoxville when the team came back home and celebrated that national title.
I do want to properly set John's parameters because, John, I don't know if you meant to do this or not, but the short turnaround would be the case in football because of recruiting previously, which is why they didn't do a parade, and Philip Fulmer has lamented that. But the other thing we've got to remember is Philip Fulmer, like it or not, isn't as likable as Tony Vitello. And I do think seeing the crowd be around him as much as any of the players and getting their babies and boobs autographed by Tony Vitello, I thought that it was more about Tony Vitello than it was any of the players times 10.
Well, Tony Vitello is the face of college baseball.
Right. Beyond just Tennessee baseball. Great point.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he'll be on the MLB draft show. Tony Vitello will be an analyst for that. He's really been the face of college baseball for a few years, more so than any player, more so than any other coach. I mean, to a cliche, he's a term, he's a rock star here. You just, there just hasn't been anybody like him as a coach at Tennessee. Pat Summitt was like that when she was here, where she was bigger than the program. She was known by people who didn't even know anything about women's basketball. But Vitale is becoming that in a different way. He's his enthusiasm, his outgoing personality, just a charismatic personality. Now, the other thing, though, Caleb's right. Statewide, yeah, and regionally, football has more reach with fans. But in this short a turnaround, I don't know how many people could have traveled that far. I mean, this was just like kind of an overnight deal. Oh, by the way, we're going to have a parade. I mean, there was nothing. I didn't notice any security there. The crowd just came out in the road. There was no restraining ropes or anything. This wasn't, I'm not criticizing, I'm just explaining what it was like. It was totally like spontaneous. Hey, let's have a parade, and everybody shows up. You wouldn't have been able to come you need to plan things like this. And you'd have to fight your way through Knoxville traffic, which gets worse by the day, just to get downtown. So I just don't think you could have seen that huge influx of fans from statewide.
I think we would all agree, Caleb, I want to go to you, that the excitement would have been greater statewide, fandom-wide, had it been football. But John's almost won me over, because when I saw the crowd, I thought, and now I think it's reported, John, at 50,000. Does that sound right?
Yeah, I've heard that.
Okay, my first thought was whatever it is, it's going to be doubled, and it's been said on the message board. And I'm still going to say it would be more for football. But given the turnaround, given the fact that you could have bad weather in first quarter, that's all a factor. And I think the biggest factor, Caleb, is that there was this sense of relief that of any of the significant teams, women's basketball, men's basketball, baseball, football, had they won, there was, I don't want to say overreaction, but there was going to be a strong reaction. Rick Terry Jewelry Design, they want to be your jeweler. Looking for affordable game day jewelry. How about the Fire Opals? A Tennessee tradition, rickterryjewelry.com, rickterryjewelry.com. So, Caleb, that's something that Tennessee's next championship team won't have, is this sense of relief.
So I understand that, particularly when I guess the 98 national title, I don't know if it was a national title of relief as much of a national title of pleasant surprise. I think you guys were closer to the program than me. It felt like going into 98 after Peyton Manning left, it felt like fans may have felt that, all right, Fulmer, this program's never going to get a national title because they couldn't get it under Manning, and then they go and win it. But my pushback, and I get y'all's point with Tony Vitello and the popularity. But guys, I think Tennessee football fans alone outnumber all of college baseball fans. So even if he is the most popular person in college baseball, I mean, I would say Tennessee, and I don't just mean Tennessee, I mean Georgia football fans, Alabama football fans. I think the fans of these SEC programs individually in football outnumber the entire college baseball fan base, and they compete with the entire college basketball fan base. And so, like, okay, we talk about how beloved Tony Vitello is. Would Tony Vitello draw a bigger crowd than Al Wilson would have drawn after 1998 on campus?
John?
What do you mean a bigger crowd? Just for a parade, or just hey? If you're going to say Tony Vitello will be somewhere, you can meet Tony Vitello. You can get him to sign anything on your body.
How about Sports Treasures carrying over 5 million Sports Treasures following Facebook? Sports Treasures TN, Sports Treasures TN daily updates. How about there?
Yeah, I think Tony Vitello would have drawn a bigger crowd.
Then Al Wilson right after 98. Not Al Wilson right now. Al Wilson right after the 98 national title.
Yeah.
Wow, I love it. I may be different than both of you. I think Al Wilson would draw more of a crowd now, 26 years later, than he would then, because everybody was so stunned. I think now We're going to get him to Sports Treasures eventually, and they're going to be lined out the door. But I will tell you this, John, to your point, talking to Zach, our friend at Sports Treasures, he got back from Omaha, and he went there. It was a fun and business trip, brought home a bunch of collectibles, and he said that a lot of them were sold out in no time. Now, he's gotten more, so go to Sports Treasures in North Knoxville. But he was genuinely stunned by the response. So that speaks to your point of, I think there was an emotional, visceral reaction to this that you won't have in another championship.
Well, Al Wilson was an incredible player. He was a star of that national championship team, and he came up. He had his biggest moments when it mattered most. You think of usually the quarterback on championship teams is everything kind of revolves around him. But Al Wilson was just the driving force behind that championship, and he was a player. But he wasn't a personality. Tony Vitello is a personality. And this is a celebrity-driven era. He is a celebrity in Knoxville. I think you have to live here to really appreciate that, but he really is. I mean, if Tony Vitello's out, people want to see him. They want to meet him. I've been at a radio remote where Tony just showed up unannounced, and all of a sudden a line forms immediately. It's
chicks out of nowhere. Yeah, he's got to do well.
Hey, the Kardashians would be lining up to see Tony.
Well, yeah, but
he doesn't have the right skin tone for them.
And I think he's probably out of their league. And if you're standing behind him, you wouldn't be able to see him at all.